President Obama announces that hundreds of thousands of undocumented migrants who came to the US as children could be allowed to stay in the country. Is this an historic moment or simply a political ploy in an election year? You're watching Inside Story US 2012 from Washington. Hello, I'm Shihab Ratansi. The DREAM Act, which proposes giving permanent residency to hundreds of thousands of undocumented migrants, was first introduced in the Senate in August of 2001. But it's floundered amid bickering and rancor on Capitol Hill. So, nearly 11 years later, President Obama has bypassed Congress and announced that some 800,000 primarily Latino migrants who came to the country as children could be allowed to stay in the country. The White House is keen to stress this is not an amnesty, and to be eligible, the migrants will have to have graduated high school, have no criminal record, and be under the age of 30. Many Republicans have already criticized the decision, calling it unconstitutional. They've also argued that unemployed US citizens will lose out. Prior to this decision, immigrant rights advocates had criticized the president for increasing the number of deportations by 30% since President Bush left office. Anand Naidu's been gauging reaction to the decision among activists outside the White House.
I'm here at the White House where an immigrants' rights group is holding a demonstration in support of these latest changes that have been announced by President Obama. Joining me now are two young people who will be affected by these latest changes. Tell me, what is your immediate reaction to what the president just said?
I was so excited that I started crying. It's just something so amazing that will lead to more students, studying more, trying to pursue a better future.
Have you lived in fear so far?
Yes, every day of my life I have, but now that's gonna be over.
Okay. What about yourself, sir?
I just think that, this is a light of hope that everybody in my situation has been looking for. And to be quite honest, I was afraid. I even went to jail. I was about to be deported. And then, I was taken out because all my friends decided to, start a movement. But today, I feel like I can finally rest. I feel like this is just the greatest thing that has happened ever since I came here, and I'm just so thankful for it.
So, how significant is President Obama's decision? To discuss this in the studio is Christian Ramos from the New Democrat Network. I'm joined from Los Angeles by Jonathan Perez, who is co-founder of the Immigrant Youth Coalition in Southern California. He's an undocumented migrant himself, originally from Colombia. Also in the studio, Ryan Grimm, who is the Washington bureau chief for the Huffington Post. Christian Ramos, then perhaps it's useful to discuss what exactly was announced. This wasn't, as some had reported earlier, an executive order. It appears to be a guidance from the Department of Homeland Security to those enforcing the law on the scope of their prosecutorial discretion. Is that correct?
Yes. The important thing for people to understand here is way back in August of 2011, the president worked with the Department of Homeland Security to roll out new rules about how the Department of Homeland Security would pursue deportations, establishing high level of threat and low priority deportations. All this announcement today that President Obama has done is taken all of the low priority deportation undocumented immigrants out of the system. It allows them to apply for a work permit.
Has it taken them out of the system, or is it simply telling those who are enforcing the law to not give them as much priority, or at least consider not giving them as much priority?
So they are currently in the deportation process. All this says is they're able to allowed to apply for work permits to remain in the country for the next 2 years. After those 2 years are up, we'll see what happens. We'll see what.
But no guarantees.
No guarantees. No, there's absolutely no pathway to citizenship, but it absolutely allows undocumented immigrants to remain who are.
Does it? No guarantees even that you will be considered. It's up to those people.
After you go through the process, and if you are found to be in fact a low priority undocumented immigrant.
If you're found.
If you are found to be there, and you are in good standing with the government, you have no criminal record, and you are contributing positively to society, and whatever the criteria that may be, you are allowed to stay in the country for 2 years with a work permit, with no change to your status.
Hang on, are there separate decisions to be made then on those other stages as well afterwards? Again, no guarantees on work permits, no guarantees on anything else.
Right, you have to be found to be a low priority undocumented immigrant.
Jonathan Perez then, a great deal seems to hinge on this term prosecutorial discretion. I mean, are you satisfied that that is where that this is making a much more equitable system, the immigration system more equitable?
I think not. Actually, that's what worried us about the prosecutorial discretion and this announcement. When it was announced last year, we were very skeptical because it was based on case by case and based on the discretion of the immigration official. And so what we've seen ever since is that about 1% of those cases that were reviewed of people that are in deportation proceedings, only 1% have been granted prosecutorial discretion. And so what makes it different this time, right? And so we're kind of in a situation where we feel like, trick me once, shame on you, trick us twice, shame on me, right? And so now we have to deal with that. But I think what we really need is an executive order to halt the deportation of DREAM Act eligible youth, because if we do that, if Obama signs that executive order, there's a guarantee, there's a law, not just a memo or an announcement. You know, and the past few years while Obama's been in office, they've deported over 1.6 million people with a goal of 400,000 deportations a year.
We'll get to some of those figures.
We need a little bit more than that
in a moment. But I think what Jonathan was referring to, that 1%, was, I mean, earlier they had announced, the Obama administration announced, there would be prosecutorial discretion in immigration matters, in the sense that only those who were seen as a risk to the United States or who had committed a crime would be deported, and it had basically no effect whatsoever.
Well, we at Huffington Post did a story a couple months ago where we FOIA'd all of the documents that the immigration has about who they have actually decided to deport, and a huge percentage, I don't remember the exact numbers offhand, but an overwhelming percentage were people who had either no criminal record at all or just some drug possession crime. So Jonathan's very much right that there is a lot of suspicion among the community who was expecting a different approach.
Which is exactly why the president came out today. And, you know, they realize no system is perfect. You're dealing with the federal government. This is a process that is, as we just saw, very long in terms of prosecutorial discretion. What the president has done essentially is said, look, these undocumented immigrants like
Jonathan. Right, but it had
Jonathan,
no effect last time it was announced.
No, but this time they've separated those people out completely, and they're not going to be in the deportation proceedings.
Well, no, at the discretion of those who are prosecuting them, though, right? So there's nothing.
But I mean, look.
And at the discretion, it seems. I mean, remember, there's a huge amount of pressure, of course, on immigrations and customs enforcement and others to show that they are getting results for all the money that's being thrown at them. So again, you have to worry about, you know, is it up to them really?
The only thing I will say to this is, even within an hour of the president announcing this, the Republican Party has already said they were going to sue to stop the president from even doing this.
Is that the way we should judge policy? Okay, well, say that, we're discussing those who are already in custody. I think what the implication from the president's announcement was that people should come forward now and go through the system, and in the hope that they would be granted residency. Now, this is quite interesting too, because what they get, as far as we can tell then, is if they come forward, they get the chance to apply for a deferral of deportation action for 2 years.
Yes.
That's not guaranteed. No. So there's always a chance that having come forward, they'll be rejected and then deported or go through the system. And only then, if they get that deferral of deportation, can they apply for a work permit. And that's not guaranteed either. So actually, you might be in that catch-22 where you've actually got the deferral of deportation, but you're not allowed a work permit. So, I mean, really, do you think there's much incentive for people to come forward?
I think, well, I mean, that's actually not a question for me. You should ask.
Jonathan, yes, you.
I think what we've seen, we've actually had deferred action for a long time, and you know, through the National Immigrant Youth Alliance, we've done educational deportation cases where we take on cases of youth who are in deportation proceedings, and because of the prosecutorial discretion, this past year we've had a really tough time and we've lost a lot of cases. Right now we have about 70 cases, and we're losing them because prosecutorial discretion is being denied and folks are being deported. And so we haven't even been able to get deferred action. And so, like, we really need to look at that. ICE agents and immigration officials have chosen to ignore prosecutorial discretion. Whether Obama or the Department of Homeland Security say anything, ICE officials have the discretion and they have that choice, and we can't put it in their hands. It has to be a legislation that ensures that this happens, not just leave it in their hands because they have a quota to meet.
ICE as an immigration and customs enforcement, I mean, given all that then, Jonathan, with this new announcement from the White House and the Department of Homeland Security, do you expect the 800,000 who are eligible for this provision to actually come forward?
Well, that we don't know because there's a lot of details that we still haven't gotten answers for. For example, if those 2 years expire and you don't qualify again, will you be deported? Or if you age out and turn 30, will you be in deportation proceedings? Because you're pretty much in their system now. And so there's a lot of details in terms of that, and also people that have committed 3 misdemeanors, because if you remember, in many states, it's a misdemeanor to drive without a license if you get caught. And so there's hundreds and thousands of immigrants who commit these crimes because they have no choice. And so that doesn't give them relief, or it actually leaves them out. And so we have to look at the criminality and those issues with undocumented immigrants. It's not everyone is this perfect immigrant that has a college degree, straight A's, no criminal record.
Right.
The fact of being undocumented is, it's very easy to commit any illegal act because they make things basic to anyone else illegal.
Right. I mean, Christian Ramos, I mean, that is also slightly perplexing. President Obama's focus purely on college-educated or high school-educated children or young people. Is he suggesting, is the logic then that non-educated children should be blamed for where they are and be deported?
All right, before we even address that, I know I'm supposed to be speaking to other things, but I want to bring in the political element here, which is the fact that the reason the president has made this so narrowly tailored, the way that it is because the Republican Party in Congress, which has already said that they're going to sue the president over this, in Jonathan's case, what he's saying is this is not enough, right? Well, the only reason this is not enough is because the Republicans in Congress are saying they're going to sue for this stuff. They won't pass anything through the House on this stuff. They won't give these guys, these children, or people like Jonathan, the opportunity to stay in this country and to contribute here. And this is sort of a perplexing thing as somebody like myself who is an advocate and who does deal with this issue every day. Because you know what? I was there back in 2010, right, when there was an opportunity to pass this thing. And the reality is, in 2006, there were 22 Republican senators who said that they would vote for immigration reform. Right. John McCain and Orrin Hatch. I just want to point out...
Right, it's been very difficult to get the DREAM Act through, that's true. But unfortunately, we are looking at what's happening now, and also looking at what's happening now in the context of the election campaign. Ryan Grimm, I mean, clearly there are a lot of unanswered questions about this. But having said that, this is being presented as this hurrah moment for the White House finally coming through, at least as far as it can come through on this issue. We are in an election. Election year. Is this, even if it's not terribly substantive though, might he still be banking on the fact that it is a reminder that he is better than the alternative, partly for the reasons that Christian was spelling out there then?
For sure. You know,
well, I think it's not just
Jonathan, just a moment.
Though,
sure. Yeah,
right?
So what the president is doing here exactly is trying to do what Democrats have been doing since 2005, 2006, which is to highlight the nativist element of the Republican Party by kind of boxing them into this anti-Latino corner. And it's easy to box them into it because there are serious elements in it that genuinely believe that stuff. And so as that party has become gradually more captured by that element, the political folks want to highlight that. Now, the problem that the president has had in exploiting this is that he's been bad on it too. As Jonathan said, record deportations. So how do you then get move that ball forward? Well, you do something positive for the community, and you can't underestimate what a little bit of positive policy can do for a community. If you take the gay and lesbian community, for example, 2 years ago, they were at the president's throat over his refusal to get behind a lot of the gay rights issues. He repealed Don't Ask, Don't Tell. He backed off DOMA, and then he supported gay marriage publicly. And now they are his most ardent supporters. So bygones can be bygones.
Well, having
politics,
said that, I mean, Jonathan
go
Perez,
in the right direction.
I mean, it's one of your group is currently occupying several Obama campaign offices. I mean, do you think that this sort of announcement is a direct result of some of the campaigning that your group has been doing and other groups have been doing?
Yeah, so we started last week and we occupied Denver and the campaign office in Denver. And so they were actually locked in and they engaged in a 6-day hunger strike. And so now Los Angeles headquarters, Oakland, Cincinnati, Atlanta, the Detroit, Michigan office have all been shut down because they have been occupied by undocumented students. And so all their offices are closed right now, or they're being very secretive. And so at this point, we feel that that's the pressure that has forced Obama to come out with something supportive, because
Yeah, but is this going to be enough?
And that's why we're staying.
Right.
We're staying until we hear for an executive order. And so it's not enough, and we're going to continue to what we're calling undoccupy.
Christian Ramos, I mean, this is a disaster, isn't
his
it?
campaign,
No, it's not a disaster.
his campaign headquarters, because we know that this is just an attempt to kind of ease us off or kind of calm us down. But we know
All right,
that
let's get-
right
let's
now
get-
we're in a...
Christian, I mean, that's it. So nice try, it didn't work.
No, I just don't think it's a PR disaster. Look, the president has always wanted to pass the DREAM Act. The president has always wanted to overhaul immigration system that doesn't work for our country. The president wants to help people like Jonathan. You know, Jonathan, you could apply for the deferment of action now. I'm assuming if you don't have if you are in good standing and everything else, I mean, and you would be fine in 2 years. And honestly,
There's no guarantees. We just went through that.
but there's no guarantees. He has even less guarantees before.
All right,
and
well,
I just
let's-
want to present the alternative being, before this happened, there was even less of because they would actually be in deportation. That's the thing that I'm sort of like, let me ask you this. If this was me, and I am in this country without documentation, and this is not me, I'm not speaking for dreamers, but I'm just talking about myself, and this happens, and I have an opportunity to go through this process versus not having the opportunity to go through this process, I'm in a better place because I have the opportunity to go through this
Okay,
process.
Jonathan, you better address that. Would you be in a better place if you went
Yes.
through the system?
I don't think so, because at the same time, if we stop organizing and we stop pushing, then our movement dies down. And even when we were trying to pass the DREAM Act, we escalated, even though people were giving us some advice to stop pushing so hard, and we almost got it passed. A movement that is unfunded, did more work than organizations have done in 10 years, and it's the same this year. Unfunded organizations like the National Immigrant Youth Alliance, Immigrant Youth Coalition are pushing, and we're seeing results because we are challenging
Nobody's
Obama's
saying
lies.
not
And
to.
so
Well, let's just take a look at the wider political context now. I mean, as far as the opinion polls are conducted, Obama continues to do pretty well amongst the Latino community. Not that immigration is the only issue that's excising the Latino community. Clearly, it's the economy and everything else, frankly. But 67% of registered Latino voters say they support President Obama. That's the same percentage who voted for him in 2006. Just 27% supporting Romney. Ryan Grimm, though, is this really about? I mean, clearly he's got the Latino community is pretty loyal. But is this about that sense of unease about some of the things that Jonathan is talking about, and actually about getting turnout and enthusiasm going, specifically in states where the Latino community is strong?
Sure, because when people turn out for a variety of reasons, and one of it is the hatred of the other party, but another is what's this? What is in it for me? And when you're knocking on doors, when you're trying to get your cousin, your uncle, your father, your mother to go out to the polls, and now when they ask, well, what have they done? Then now they have something to point to. Say, well, he's done this.
But no one's really necessarily buying it, are they? All these people who are looking at it closely, as many in these communities
And
will
then,
be. They won't necessarily
but
buy
then
it.
the next answer can be, okay, yeah, well, this is nothing. This is a little tiny thing. And then you say, well, even over this, the Republicans are suing him. They're suing the president. So it draws this contrast, so that it shows like just how little is possible if this Republican Party is.
And clearly, it's
I
forcing
think Republicans will sue Obama regardless of anything. They sued him
Well, they're
over
suing him today, not
anything.
They
yesterday.
didn't get, but the reality is,
And
look,
so-
I feel like this conversation is occurring in a political vacuum where it's a one-party system and the president is the king of the world. He's not. He has to deal with, places like Arizona and some of these other states who, quite frankly, don't want to ever have to deal with these issues.
Right.
And I think, in any politics, it's the art of the compromise. It's the art of coming to some place in the middle. And I think, look, this is not even a compromise, right? really.
Isn't it rather similar to the Republican, or what we thought might be a Republican approach to this from which Mitt Romney might actually advocate? Isn't the genius of this is it's kind of making Romney choose between the recent outreach he's been doing to the Latino community after the primaries, where he said a lot of pretty crazy things, perhaps, and his base.
And if you look at Romney and Marco Rubio, the Florida senator's response to this, it shows that tough situation that this has put them in. They basically said that they support the idea behind this. They're sort of okay with the decision itself, but not the decision maker and not the process behind it. So it puts them in this very strange place. Like we like the spirit of what he's doing, but we think it's illegal, and we're going to sue him over it. That's a really tough and untenable position. It's a strange one. Now, Romney was asked today, well, so okay, if you don't like this, are you going to overturn it if you're elected? And he wouldn't answer that. And his refusal to answer that, shows you basically everything you need to know about this. Because in the past, in the primary, if he would have been asked that same question, he would have said absolutely deport them or self-deport them.
I think the other thing you want to, just on the political side of this thing, you pointed out those poll numbers already. The Hispanic community supports the president.
That doesn't mean they'll turn out to vote for president.
Well, but they support him already. And this argument is that, doing this is sort of this political thing. The reality is he's been trying to do this since August of 2011. You have to get your ducks in order. You have to be careful about this and make this as narrowly tailored as possible because the Republican Party will sue you.
Let me put something out there then which I think is almost guaranteed to infuriate you, Christian. There are some who think, well, perhaps it's not a bad idea not to have comprehensive bipartisan immigration reform because this is such a great wedge issue for the Democrats to have in their back pocket, specifically in times of close elections in swing states. And maybe this is, if it is going to happen, it was always going to be a second-term issue, perhaps, because this is such a great issue to bring up during a tight election campaign.
I personally don't buy it. As an immigration advocate, everybody that I've worked within that community, we all want to get this done. And you know what? Me and him may disagree on some stuff, Jonathan, but I absolutely want you to have a pathway to citizenship. I would love it if you got, administrative relief and everything else. There are certainly some people in the party who may think that. I've never heard of it. That's certainly something that's out there. But look, at the end of the day, this is better for the country. This is better for everybody if this happens.
Right, but why is it so difficult to pass this, given that even the big corporate donors who we usually look suspiciously at when legislation is passed, and many of them are in favour of this, although clearly there's a lot of money in this now, and there are a lot of corporate donors now who are quite happy to lock people up and mandatorily and
prisons.
So forth. But what's going on? Why is it so difficult?
I mean, it's a genuine grassroots problem with their base. I think it's really as simple as that. And as we've seen in every country that goes through hard economic times, you get this nationalism that rises, and
but all the indicators show immigration at historic lows, maybe net negative Mexican immigration now into
this is a
into
situation
Mexico.
That's completely immune to facts.
But is this really more than about racial attitudes rather than or fear of future demography and so forth, rather than anything about undocumented migrants?
This is I think it's just a very simple thing that, well, okay, put it to you this way. If there's any party that has a real problem with this, it's the GOP. I mean, you're seeing this with a lot of the voting laws that are going on out there. You're seeing this with a lot of these state-passed laws. It's not like the Democratic Party is out there endorsing any of this stuff. At the end of the day, the Democratic Party wants this thing to happen because you know what? The converse argument is if we pass undocumented immigration reform, again, it makes the country better, but I would love it if the GOP would come along on this, because...
Jonathan Perez, do you accept that divide between the Republicans and the Democrats, that there is a goodie and a baddie on this debate?
No, I think they're both part of the problem. I think we saw that when the DREAM Act was introduced, where in order to get even Democratic votes for the DREAM Act, students had to do hunger strikes, 30-day hunger strikes against their own Democratic elected officials to get them just to co-sponsor the DREAM Act. And even some Democrats didn't even vote for the DREAM Act. And so let's take that into account that, even Harry Reid had to be pushed when they had a sit-in in his office. And so let's look at Democrats and really what they're really doing. And it's not to say that Republicans are not doing anything, but neither are Democrats. And so when you look at the Marco Rubio bill, at least he's introducing something, right? And we have to look at that if it's a good bill or not, you know, and so because the Democrats are not going to do anything.
Jonathan Perez, thank you very much. We have to leave it there. Christian Ramos, thank you as well. Ryan Grimm, thank you. And that's it from the team in Washington, D.C. for now. We want to hear from you. Tell us what stories you think we should be covering. Send your ideas directly to us at insidestory@aljazeera.net.